Welcome to this episode of the Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast, where we look forward to shaving every day. Welcome to episode 91 of the podcast. My name is Rick Luis. I'll be your host this week. This week we've got a couple of shaves of the day, well, with some extra stuff, because, once I get started talking about something, I'll delve off into all kinds of areas. I found a new use for balm, and I'll tell you about that. Okay, I also have throw another shave of the day in there, and again, while I'm kind of going off on, in a different direction, one of the things that pops up is having a positive attitude. What it means, how it works, and, why it's so important. I give you a YouTube channel update. I'm almost caught up. And then something set me off this week, and it was some Facebook stuff, and it's not necessarily for the original posts. It was, about compliance and, what that may really mean and why it's potentially scary. But first off, let's start off with some letters. I've got, or some emails. I've got 3 emails, one from Mark, one from David, and one from Joe. And so let's go ahead and get started with emails, and we'll get on with this show. So I got an email from Mark. I'm so glad you highlighted the Lord Tech razor on last week's episode. I've seen so many reviews of high-end razors, but when it comes to a product for under $10 that does a great job, there is much less attention. Toward the end of the podcast, you used the Lord blade that came with the razor. I put the blade in my survival kit, but I might take it out and give it a try. I gave one of these razors to my nephew. He is now head over heels into wet shaving. He has purchased several soaps, creams, brushes, and aftershaves. When I asked him if he purchased any razors, he said, I ordered another Lord Tech for my cabin. Cheap salsa bowl regards, Mark. Well, thanks for the letter, Mark. The Lord blade, the Lord razor was a surprise, and the Lord blade redeemed itself. So all is good in that regard. Thanks for the letter. I got an email from Dave. Dear Rick, it's one of life's pleasures knowing your show is available week after week. Working from my home office, my job requires the cropping of hundreds of images a month. Needless to say, Thursday is cropping day, a day to enjoy a good coffee, along with the dulcet tones of your voice, breaking up the monotony of cropping image after image. Today, I write for your advice. My oldest son is about to graduate from grade 8. Considered a milestone here in Ontario, Canada, a small but significant rite of passage marking the official transition to high school. I know he would consider a shaving gift significant even though he does not yet shave. I know because I gave his older cousin a shaving brush for Christmas. It was a fairly entry-level brush, black badger hair, etc., in one of 200 walnut handles I had produced at a Mennonite spindle factory for a project which is yet to reach fruition. At any rate, when my nephew opened the gift, the younger siblings and cousins fell silent, into a holy kind of silence for a few moments, as if something important had occurred. So I don't want to miss that moment for my son. My question is, do I go all out with something higher end that he can grow into and hopefully cherish for life, perhaps never use but display proudly, or lower end, quality but practical? One thought that occurs is since he still has very few whiskers, a luxury brush and cream might be the way to go since those would add to his early enjoyment of shaving. On the other hand, going lower end would allow room for nicer gifts later in life. And then again, one never knows one's life expectancy, so why wait? These are some of the thoughts bouncing around in my 51-year-old mind. I just wondered if you had any experience with giving shaving gifts to young men or introducing them to wet shaving. Again, thanks for doing what you do, and all the best. Okay, so first off, congratulations to your young man. It is a rite of passage moving on into high school, so congratulations. The 200 walnut handles produced at the Mennonite factory, that sounds intriguing. If you ever do get that going and need some help getting the word out, let me know. Be happy to help. Okay, so I wrote back and I said, okay, how much time do I have to ponder this? And he said, well, about 3 weeks. So I wrote him back tonight, and after careful consideration and a talk with my own sons, the recommendation is to go the practical route. First off, he can learn to use it without fear or trepidation of harming whatever it is. And as my oldest son pointed out, at that age, not much is, well, cherished, really. It's appreciated and all, but not really cherished like we, as adults would like to think. So there's the suggestion, practical. Got an email from Joseph. Hi, Rick. Been a fan for quite some time, and this is my second time writing you. Episode 70 featured my first letter. I've been using a straight razor that was made in the late 18th century. So 1770s to 1790s, on a regular basis, and wanted to see if you had requests or interest in razors produced in this time period. This razor performs well and is definitely up to par with modern forms of shaving. Using it almost makes me feel insignificant, as this razor has survived 230 years in the world. So if you have any interest in featuring 18th century shaving products, I would be more than happy to answer any questions for your podcast. I look forward to my Thursday commute to work. Thanks again, Joe. So of course, I wrote Joe back and said, wow, that must be really cool to use a straight razor of that era. So some of the questions that I had were, well, are there any special precautions, or does it shave as good as modern era? And also, how'd you go about finding it? So he wrote back, and he wrote back with a couple of with a picture, and the picture is a picture of a modern straight razor and his older straight razor. And some of the things that are interesting is that the older straight razor doesn't have a tang. It doesn't have a defined shoulder. It doesn't have a tang. It doesn't have a tail. So you look at it and you think to yourself, okay, how do you hold on to this thing? So it's really rather intriguing, and I'll post this up in the show notes because it's really rather cool. Anyhow, he wrote me back and he said, thanks for the response. There are a few precautions when using a razor this age. It's a bit difficult to hold and requires extra attention when shaving. These older razors, stub tails, have small or non-existent tails and lack of a defined shoulder for grip. The shave quality is similar to modern straights, although the full wedge construction plows through whiskers like no other. The razor is virtually silent when shaving. It's a tad scary as you see your whiskers coming off your face without the popular ting associated with modern straights. Although the razor is sharp, it doesn't hold an edge as long as modern straights. Cast steel was just invented in the mid-1700s and was still a bit crude. I found this razor by accident on eBay. The seller purchased a Victorian estate in New England and found this razor in a wall while renovating. I placed one bid and actually won. When it came into my possession, the razor was in serious need of some tender, loving care. I cleaned it up, honed it, and the rest is history. About the razor. There is no maker's mark, letters or numbers anywhere on the razor. There is, however, a slight gash on the tang that might have been a branding of some sort, but I can't make out the symbol. The lack of a tail means it was produced in France. Tailless razors were popular amongst French barbers until the 20th century. No idea why. I've had the razor validated to be around 225 to 235 years old from several experts. The design, steel, and construction place the razor in this time period. I'm not sure if the scales are original, but they are made of solid ebony. I've attached a picture of a brand new Dovo and the 1700s wedge for comparison. In addition, he's also got a thread that he would like to share. It's a thread that he wrote regarding straight razor safety some time back. It's a sticky or a permanent thread on the shaved end, and it goes over the basics for straight razor safety. Sorry for being so long. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. And thanks again for your time, and I look forward to your next podcast. Joe. Well, Joe, first off, thank you very much for providing pictures and a little bit of history. I would love to actually have one of those in my hands. That's pretty cool. I would have, a little bit of trepidation, I guess, in using it, for a couple reasons. Number one, nothing really to hold on to. And, the other thing is just 'cause it's so old, I'd be scared of, hurting it. Although it could hurt me, but it's one of those things. I really treasure things that are of that age. So I understand completely your comment about feeling, a little insignificant around something that's that old. So anyhow, Joe, thank you very much for the letters. And if you think we need to hear about anything else, let us know.
Well, today is Thursday. And we have a shave of the day to talk about. Now, the shave of the day today, first off, on Thursdays, it's always a bit of a conundrum because typically I'm coming off of the Wednesday podcast. I usually, sometimes, not usually, sometimes stay up late putting together the podcast because, I got distracted by squirrel, by something else when I was doing the podcast, a good movie on TV, a conversation with somebody. I mean, things happen. It's just the way it is. It's called life. Anyhow, some days on Thursday, I wake up or don't really want to wake up, and I'm feeling a little groggy, and it's like, oh, God, just give me a safety razor and let me go on with life. However, some Thursdays, get a good night's sleep, wake up, and go, okay, let's look around and try to decide what it is we want to do today. So, today, all right, a couple days ago, I used Arabian Spice, the Kel's Arabian Spice, and noticed that I didn't have much of a reaction to it. So, it'd been a couple of days, and I wanted to go back and try it, just to see, what happened. Well, I went ahead and soaked up the 1305 boar brush, Samog boar brush, and lathered up the Kel's Original Arabian Spice. And what I noticed is the first application didn't really have any sensation, but it was thick. There probably was. I'm not going to say it was a bit dry, but it was a little bit less water, and so it was thick. And didn't have that sensation. Now, the second pass lather, I dipped the brush and got a little bit more moisture on it and, lathered up, and I was starting to feel just a little bit of the cinnamon burn. Just a bit, just a touch. And it just kind of stayed there at the, kind of a nagging feeling, it was there like somebody constantly, like a little kid tugging at your shirt or something like that, or the, not quite as bad as the Bart Simpson, commercial but one of those where they're sitting there going, mommy, 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 it's just irritating as snot. No, it's not like that. It was more of a, just kind of every now and then tapping you on the shoulder saying, I'm still here. So that was interesting. 1305, of course, did a great job. This morning, I decided to use the straight razor that I had purchased. What was it? I had purchased it about 2 weeks ago and received it about a week ago, and that is the Bell brand that I bought, and it was. Purchased on the Twitter Wet Shaver Enablers Buy Sell Trade, and I looked at that and went, yeah, that's not a bad price, and I'll go ahead and pick that up. And so I'd had this thing for a week, and of course it's nagging at me, it's drawing me, it's like come, it's like this siren song, it's just. it was a temptation that was hard to resist. Well, this morning I gave into said temptation, had a little bit extra time, and shaved with my Bell brand straight razor. Oh my goodness, what a fabulous little razor! Very, very nice. I say little. It's not little by any means. It's just, it's a straight razor. But a fabulous straight razor. I really, really enjoyed it. Now, I will say, when I bought it, I had just a touch of trepidation because it is a square point. And quite honestly, me and square points have not quite yet come to an understanding that they should not nick and cut and tear me up and do all that. So, there is always some slight trepidation as to whether or not I'm going to have an encounter, an argument, a disagreement with the square point on my straight razor. It happens. I used to ride horses, and that was how we described a horse that was, not really behaving quite right. I haven't come to an agreement as to who is really going to be in charge yet. It's it was a little bit easier to think in those terms than, dang, that horse just kicked my butt. Wouldn't let me do anything. I mean, the horse is in control. Not a good situation. Anyhow, it's so that's kind of the terms that I have decided to adopt for my straight razors. So we, from time to time, have a disagreement. Now, the good news is it's just a square point. When I look at some of the straight razor designs, some of them terrify me. For example, the Spanish point. Oh my gosh, who in their right mind would ever come up with that? It's like, good gosh, that's oh, jeez. But, I understand that there is a technical purpose for that type of razor. I do understand that, but I have to admit that looking at it, it's just, my God, it's like an Inquisition instrument, which would be appropriate, calling it Spanish. So, anyhow, the Bell brand razor did an absolutely great job. I may use it a couple more times this week just to get a little bit more practice. Now, the one thing that I do realize is that square point when I'm doing my neck, I have to be careful. So when I'm doing an against the grain on my jawline, I have to be a little careful there. I didn't nick myself. In fact, the interesting thing is that through all of that, the place where I ended up just catching myself ever so slightly was up on the upper left cheek. Not a common place really. And again, I bought it from a guy who said that he had an eyesight problem. I fully understand, because that's exactly why I nicked myself, is because of my eyesight / coordination, or lack thereof, problem that I have. But, I'm slowly overcoming it. And I have come to the conclusion that the mind can be exceedingly malleable, and you can teach an old dog a new trick from time to time. It's interesting. There was a friend of mine sent me a what was it? A YouTube video or something. Anyhow, this guy had designed a bicycle. Well, actually, the guys at his shop had designed this bicycle and had challenged him to ride it. And it is a testament to your mind's capabilities at learning and then relearning, etc. Now, I've personally, gone through that, and I'll get to that in a minute. But this bicycle, the way it worked is, on a normal bicycle, when you turn the handlebars, the front wheel turns with the handlebars. So, learning how to ride a bike, once you learn how to ride a bike, the statement has typically been made, or commonly been made, that, it's as easy as riding a bike. Once you learn, you have that kind of ingrained in your head, and it's just one of those balance aspects that kind of is a fundamental thing. Well, the bike that they designed was was different. It had an extra tube where the handlebars went, and then it had a gear that went from the bottom of the handlebar tube to the steering of the front fork. So in fact, what happened is when you turned the handlebars to the right, the wheel turned to the left, which is 180 degrees opposite of what a normal bicycle would do. Now, the thing is that when you're riding a bicycle, the balance component of the bicycle, you're maneuvering that front wheel to compensate for your being off balance as you pedal, as you move, whatever. But that's how you maintain the balance, is between the movement of the front wheel and the movement of your own body. And that's what you have in your mind. So to have a bicycle that does exactly the opposite just throws you more off balance. You know, as you lean in one direction and steer in a direction to compensate, in fact, this bicycle that has been modified steers in the opposite direction and throws you even more off balance. So it's exceedingly difficult to ride until your brain comes up with the understanding of how the thing works, and your body compensates, and your brain finally becomes malleable enough to go, oh, okay, I understand this. Let's move on with life. And so it took this guy, I think he said 8 weeks or something like that, to master this bicycle. And the problem is that once he mastered this bicycle, when he got back on a normal bicycle, he couldn't do it for a time. And finally, after struggling with it, his brain kind of clicked, and things went okay. And to a certain extent, it's kind of like that with straight razors. You know, there's a time when your mind is going, whoa, wait a minute, stop! I can't wait. You know, what's going on here? There's an issue between, at least for me, there was an issue between what my mind was seeing in the mirror, what my hand was doing, and what I was commonly doing, and it was worse on the left hand than on the right hand, is that I was going for an angle and I would actually go in the opposite direction. So instead of going from, say, a 45-degree angle to a 20-degree angle, I would go from a 45-degree angle to a 90-degree angle. And typically when I saw that happen, in my panic, I would move, and that's when I would cut myself. It's just, you know, one of those things. And that is why, quite honestly, the recommendations are to start in a plane that is like your cheek, which is fairly flat and fairly easy to see, and not something that you will have to struggle with as far as trying to figure out and compensate and do all this stuff. You know, it's like when you're learning to ride a bicycle. Do you want to learn on a flat piece of pavement, or do you want to try to learn on gravel? Yeah, one will be relatively easy, and the one will have a different nuance that just because it is will make it more difficult. So it's kind of like that. But the brain is an exceedingly malleable thing. There have been studies done. There's a guy back, I want to say in the 1800s, and he developed a pair of glasses that flipped everything upside down in your vision. And there have been other people who have done this since. And I read back, oh my gosh, it was 30 years ago, about a guy, or at least 20 years ago. No, probably been closer to 30. Back in the 80s, I think. But there was a guy that had worn these glasses, and he had worn them morning, noon, and night for like 2 weeks. And he said that for the first 4 or 5 days, I think it was, I can't remember the exact number, but it was like 4 or 5 days, everything that he saw in these glasses, his world was in fact upside down. And he said he woke up on the morning, and I want to say it was 5 days. He woke up in the morning of the 5th day, and he looked around, and he's wearing the glasses 24/7, so he's wearing the glasses all the time. And he looked around, and everything was right side up. His brain had compensated. So he continued to wear the glasses for a time, and things were, in fact, right side up. And He just had a truck go by, but he had continued to wear the glasses, and everything was right side up until the experiment was over. And then he took the glasses off, and everything was upside down. And he said it took about a day or two, and then his brain clicked and flipped everything right side up again. And what it is a demonstration of just how malleable our brains are. Now, the thing is, and the thing that's so interesting, is that as we get older, our brains, and from what I understand, this has been scientifically proven, our brains are less malleable. In other words, in order to compensate and make those, connections, if you will, it takes longer. It's not as flexible, I guess, from a thought process. Things are kind of locked in. It's almost like, we hear about muscle memory a lot. Well, that's, kind of the same thing as your brain locking in a pattern. And so there's a certain muscle memory to thought and the way your brain deals with things. And so, when you're shaving, when you're wet shaving, the angles, when you first start out, for example, the fact that you're used to putting pressure with a razor on your face with a cartridge razor because they don't cut you, and that's the way you get a good shave. And when you go from that to a double-edged razor or single-edged razor, and the thought process, the memory, the way that you deal with the world that is rather locked in there, it takes some time for your brain to understand that you don't have to push down on this razor. It takes some conscious thought, some effort, and some time to get your brain to be malleable enough to, figure this out. Even though you want it, you know that's what you're supposed to do, but your hand is just not responding because that's not the way your brain perceives and deals with the world. The same thing is true with a straight razor. You know that there's a certain angle, there's a sweet spot in the angle. Well, the same could be said for a safety razor, but it is more true with a straight razor. You know that there's a certain angle. You know that you ought to be able to do certain things. But as you try it, you will find that, you just can't. And you sit there frustrated trying to figure out, what the heck? Why, what's going on that does not allow me to do this? And quite honestly, it's, you. In a lot of cases, it's your brain. It's the malleability of your brain and the fact that, there are things that you have done forever that your brain has said, hey, this is the way that I do things. Now, there are things that you can do to help with that as time goes on. As you go throughout your life, try doing things with the opposite hand. Try doing things that are backwards or different or, just do it. When you're driving your car, instead of putting your hand at the top of the wheel, put it at the bottom of the wheel. Use your left hand at the bottom of the wheel. Use your hand upside down. There are certain things that you can do that will change, that will force your brain to become more malleable. And in fact, there are games that they have. Luminosity is one, that is well known and famous, but that's essentially what they're trying to do is, make your brain malleable, make it move, make it, get up and run around, basically. And so if you're having problems with razors, with straight razors, with safety razors, all those kind of things, do it in such a way that you're not going to hurt yourself, of course, but practice. And it kind of goes along with the whole idea of try. Practice and try and do things and experiment and make your brain be more malleable. It's like, looking at yourself in a camera, in the camera screen and trying to shave, for example. It's opposite. It's just, there are things that you can do that will really just mess with your head. And sometimes that's kind of fun. Especially if you know the secret because, then you can mess with other people's heads, which is rather enjoyable sometimes, especially when there's a few adult beverages involved and they're friends. So, anyhow, if you are having issues with trying to figure out the coordination of a safety razor or straight razor or something like that, even a brush. And quite honestly, for face lathering, for example, I was very good at a circular motion in a counterclockwise direction on my face on one side. I couldn't do it worth a darn on the other side with my left hand for a fairly long period of time. My left hand was just not used to moving in that direction. It didn't know how to do that. I had to train myself. The same is true for bowl lathering. I could lather with my right hand just fine. I couldn't lather with my left hand for worth a darn. I knew what I wanted to do. I just couldn't figure out how to do it. It was like my hand would not go in that direction at that speed, at that pressure. It wouldn't do what I wanted it to do. And it was terribly frustrating. And so I kept at it until, I got to the point where, okay, it's not perfect, but it's adequate and it will function that way. So that's kind of the way it is with straight razors for me right now. Is it perfect? No. Will I ever be perfect? Nope. Sorry. Don't know of any perfect people walking around on the planet at this given time. But it's pretty close. At least it's suitable. It's okay for now. I can always get better. And eventually I will come to an agreement with my square my square point on my or square tip on my straight razor. Hopefully we'll keep the disagreements down to a dull roar, and we will carry on with very, very nice straight razor shaves for the future. So it's a lovely day this morning, and it was a lovely shave of the day. The shave of the day this morning was Spike Cream, lathered up in the ye old salsa bowl, modified slightly, with the Nathan Clark Badger Hair Brush and Soap and Blade podcast brush. Still love that brush. I mean, it's a beautiful little brush. Does a great job. The Badger knot on that thing is really, really nice. Soft, holds a lot of lather, good stuff all around. So Spike Cream, Salsa Bowl, Badger Brush, followed up by, or shaved off with my Bell brand straight razor, which I have been using so far this week. Lovely, lovely shave. And me and the razor came to an agreement that there would be no bloodletting today. And so life is good. Follow that up with a little bit of the Spike aftershave. All in all, not too bad. Now, one thing that's interesting is I'm still, because unlike my other straights, this one does have a very, a very strong and rather sharp square point on the end. And so I'm still trying to figure out how to get a good pass, a good against the grain pass on my neck. So there's a little bit of nuance there that I have to learn. But all in all, good stuff. So it was a good shave of the day this morning. It was nice. It was comforting. It was I enjoy the fact. Again, it amazes me when I think about it that after I was going to say trials and everything with the straight razors, but yeah, it really hasn't been that bad. It's more, I've cut myself a few times and I've nicked myself a few times, and yeah, there's a learning curve. Okay, but it really has, nothing's required stitches. It really hasn't been that bad. So all in all, it's really been an interesting journey, an interesting part of my my wet shaving journey, which of course is what this podcast is all about. My wet shaving journey, and you just happen to be along for the ride. So all in all, it is an amazing thing. It's I stand there every now and then in wonder that, I have indeed learned how to use a straight razor and how to get a decent shave with a straight razor. And, every now and then it's just, wow, it's almost like graduating to a certain extent. When you finally get there, you're like, wow, how the heck did this happen? And of course, looking back, you don't really remember walking across the stage. You do for a couple of days, but, years later, you can't remember it. You don't, but at the time, it was a big event. So, I'm looking forward to 5 years down the road going, I wonder when it was that I figured out I could do this. It won't even register. It'll be interesting. Anyhow, that was the shave of the day today, and good stuff. Looking forward to the day, well, just like I look forward to the shave. So one of the other things that I noticed over the weekend, it was a really nice weekend, especially on Saturday. The sun was out and everything, so did some work in the morning, mowed the lawn, trimmed the hedges, and got a few other things done. And then in I'd finally had enough, I guess, and I sat around outside at my pool. And as I was doing this, of course, because I enjoy sitting out in the sun. It's just something about it. I thoroughly enjoy just sunning, if you will. Maybe I was a lizard in a past life. I don't know. But anyhow, so we sat out there, and I noticed when I came in that, I was a little burnt up and just a light singe, It was a little crispy on the edges, if you will. So the next day, when I shaved, one of the things that I was thinking about was, okay, I have abused my skin, and so I need to rehydrate a little bit. And so one of the things that I did is after my shave, I finished off with some Myersol emulsion. And I'm here to tell you, wow, that was nice, comforting, cooling. Really good stuff. Now, I previously used Myersol in the winter, for windy situations, and thought to myself, this is the appropriate place for a balm. Well, now I'm kind of second guessing that. This has been I've been doing a lot of second guessing here lately. It's, as you expand your knowledge base, you kind of go, okay, maybe. But, the Myersol on slightly sunburned skin to rehydrate things is, it's a nice, refreshing way to go. It's, at the end of it, after your skin absorbs all the moisture, it leaves a very nice feel, and things are much calmer. And the next day, especially, I noticed that things were in really good shape. So, if you're like me and have a tendency to spend a good bit of time out in the sun, think about a balm. Think about a balm like a Myersol or a Soap Commander balm or something like that, maybe with a little bit of menthol in it. Not too much. Too much, I think, would be more irritating than anything, but just a light menthol and a lot of hydration, and keep your skin in good condition, because it's a lot easier to shave a smooth piece of skin than a wrinkled up old piece of leather. But anyhow, that's the report here from South Carolina, where it is going to be a humid day, and so my skin will get all the moisture it needs, through the air. As I swim and, walk in the parking lot, and swim in the humidity. But there you go. Well, driving past the school, it is in fact the last day of school for the kiddos here in our area, and so traffic is a little lighter. No seniors out and about. They've already graduated. So it's all in all a good day. And sun's starting to peek out and warm things up after a bit of a rain last night. And all in all, it's a good day, which just happens to go along with a very nice shave of the day. Now, this morning I used my Bell brand straight razor one more time. And this time, I put a little hex on it. Used a little Dr. John's hex. and lathered that up with the 1305 Samog, and all in all, good stuff, and proceeded to shave. Now, it's interesting. Usually when I shave with a double-edged or a single-edged, and I only do a 2-pass shave, what I'll do is I'll do 1 pass down in all directions. And then, because, well, I've been doing this a while, the next pass will be an against-the-grain pass. Now, some people can't do an against-the-grain pass because it's irritating. I've always been able to and haven't had any issues with it. So I usually do, if I'm in a hurry or if it's just a regular 2-pass shave, I'll throw an against-the-grain pass in there. And so on one side, that is sideways, and on the other side, it's up. And just kind of the way it works. So I started out, I thought I had enough time, and so I proceeded to shave with my Bell brand straight razor, and went ahead and did the first pass, and everything was fine, no issues, no problems. Did the second pass, and the second pass was a sideways pass. And then I looked up and looked at the clock and realized, I'm pretty much out of time. So, okay, so we'll stop there and finish getting ready. And what I noticed is that the one side that I usually go sideways on, which is an against-the-grain pass on that side, it's actually pretty darn close. It's just shy of BBS. And so it makes me wonder if I use the same philosophy, I could probably do a very nice straight razor 2-pass shave. The first one going down and then the next one going against the grain. And I could probably walk away with a very nice, little bit better than socially acceptable shave without too much muss and fuss, and not a whole lot longer preparation period than it would take me for a double-edged razor, which is, well, nice. It kind of opens the door to options, It's one of those things where, if I can get it done, it's like, yeah, that's not a bad idea. So that's what I did. So the Hex, of course, is a marvelous soap and did a great job, as it usually and typically does. All of Dr. John's soaps do a great job, and so we did that. Finished up with a little bit of Clubman, just because, and we're off to the races, or to the donut factory, or whatever it is that I do on these days that aren't weekends, and occupy my time for, 8 to 10 hours a day. I don't know what it actually is. Somebody once told me it was called work, but, okay. Some days it really is work, and I have to remind myself that there's a reason I'm not having fun, is because if I had fun, this would be called Disney, and I would have to pay to get in. But that's okay. The job I have now is actually quite tolerable and fun in some instances. So it's not too bad. It also helps that I'm, relatively good at it anyhow, which helps. It's always nice when you go into a job and you have a situation where people actually look to you for answers because they know that you can provide them, instead of people looking at you like you're a dummy. So it's just one of those things, it kind of goes along with the mindset that you try to give yourself in the morning. Wake up, you're ventilating, you're vertical, life is good, and you have one. The good Lord has given you another day, which is a good start. So after that, it is what you make it. And, it truly is up to you. A positive attitude will do more for your outlook on life than anything else. And the thing is that there's only one person that can give you a positive attitude. Well, and that's you. Because nobody else can affect the way you feel about anything. The only person that can do that is you. And so part of the challenge, I guess, of life is to figure out on a day-to-day basis how to understand how you react to things, understand how your attitude changes with different events, and more importantly, understand how to maintain that positive attitude so that you can go through life, well, happy. Because, I'm sorry, there is no 11th commandment that says thou shalt be sad or mad or pissed off every waking moment of the day. It just doesn't exist. Now, of course, if you ask my sons, they will tell you that, well, I probably am mad, pissed off, and angry all the time. But that's just at them. That's a father's duty, you know. It's in the book, like I tell them. But in general, you know, it's a good thing to start out the day, you know, with a good attitude. You know, it's kind of like an aftershave, you know. A really good attitude is like a good aftershave. You know, you put it on and it kind of, you know, makes you alive and awakens you a little bit and makes you look forward to things. And then as the day goes on, you catch like just whiffs of good attitude every now and then. And remember that it's coming from, well, you. So, you know, you would think that you're the only one that can, you know, smell that. Well, it's not true. Because, as you've probably noticed, good attitudes attract people. Good attitudes are infectious. And that's also part of the secret. Because it's that good attitude that people want to be around. You know, it's an interesting phenomena. It's like, have you ever noticed that, you know, the classic teenage years when, you know, you're just trying to figure out what's going on in life and where you fit and all this, and, you know, your attitude's just, it's in the toilet. It really is. It's just, and nobody wants to be around you because, well, you have a bad attitude, which just drives your attitude deeper and deeper and deeper. And nobody wants to be around you, and it's just deeper and deeper, and it's like, okay. At some point, you've come to the realization that you have to pull yourself up and, you know, live life regardless of the surroundings about you. And, you know, that's when you start to envelop yourself with a little bit more positive attitude, and what you find inevitably is that positive attitude toward life is infectious, and all of a sudden, soon, people want to be around you, not because you're popular or anything, it's just because you're, well, fun to be around, because you're, you know, content and happy and, you know, supportive, because you can be. You're not worried about holding yourself up, you can, you know, spend your time helping hold other people up. It's just one of those things. It's a curiosity. I see it in my scouts, you know, from time to time, and it's like, okay, positive attitude is like 9/10 of the battle. It really is. I mean, if you want to call life a battle. But that's one of the reasons that I personally enjoy wet shaving, because for that brief period of time, it kind of allows me to think, focus, concentrate on, well, having a positive attitude, you know, understanding that, well, okay, I may nick myself from time to time. I may cut myself. I may slice myself. I may have scars from a straight razor. It's okay. It happens. It's life. It's not that big a deal. You know, like my mother said before she passed away, in the greater realm of eternity, it's all small stuff. All of it. And, yeah, sometimes you have to be reminded of that. But the you know, painting yourself with a positive attitude, giving yourself a little positive attitude splash, if you will, in the morning, will do you wonders throughout the day. And if it is a true, good, positive attitude, you will catch whiffs of it from time to time, all throughout the day. It's incredibly long-lasting, just like a really good aftershave. So I am happy to report that my YouTube channel is just about caught up with the podcast. I am now only 5 episodes away from being caught up. Okay, so first off, anybody out there that has a YouTube channel that is recording off of a phone or something straight into YouTube, I'm jealous. Because I got to go in and edit and just, piece things together, and it's just, it's a kind of a pain in the rear end. Of course, I didn't know that when I got into it. Back then when I got into it, I was like, oh yeah, this will be easy. This will be good. Not a bad thing at all. But anyhow, reality was just a little bit different. And at some point during the course of events, my old computer basically got to the point where it was not playing nicely, and heck, just turning it on was a 20-minute evolution. It really was. I think my boot up time really on that thing, granted I exaggerate a little bit with 20 minutes, but from the time I turn it on to the time I can actually do anything on that old computer is right around 12 minutes. It's just phenomenal. It's like, really? This is state of the art? So of course, when I get my, when I got my new computer, my little MacBook, it was like, holy cow, you turn it on, you put in your password, boom, you're up, you're running. Jeez. And of course, it really helps that it's, about 10 times the processor and about 100 times the disk space. And of course, instead of a rotating disk, I have a solid state drive. So, it's the best of technologies in a situation that really lends itself to being fast. And all in all, it's really good stuff. So love that. But anyhow, what that has allowed me to do is in the mornings and on weekends and things like that, I'll come down and while I'm enjoying a cup of coffee, put together a YouTube video and upload it, and all is good with the world. Now, the other interesting thing is that if my son, who likes to play video games on the computer a lot, if he is on his computer, I can't upload. Either I can't upload or he can't play a game, because the uploading of that YouTube video just annihilates our internet connection. It's really shoving a lot through the pipe. So it's just one of those things, It's I knew it was going to be, something that took a lot of speed and space and everything else. But it's interesting every now and then. In theory that it's going to be this, and then when you actually see it, you kind of look at it and go, "Dang, didn't know it was going to be that bad." But all in all, it's good stuff, because I am starting to get the YouTube channel back caught up to where it's supposed to be and where I always wanted it to be. So I wanted it to be maybe one episode behind at most, and trying to do that. So my heart's in the right place. So yeah, vote for me. I love the political season. It's it's fun to listen to all the politicians say one thing, and then somebody votes them in, and you watch them do something completely different. It's amazing. And we keep doing it. It's like the whole NSA spying thing, It's like, okay, really? You really think that's going to stop? I'm dubious. Anyhow, good stuff, but that's news from the YouTube channel. So I have to react to something that I have seen on Facebook. This time of year, it's the time of year for proms and dances and graduations and, all this stuff. And I have seen more and more instances of kids, 18-year-old kids, or sometimes younger, going to school dances or proms or, valedictorian speeches at graduations or this and that. And they are being stopped. And they are being stopped because, well, they're wearing the wrong things, or they look different, or they don't meet someone's code of what they should look like. Whether that be hair or jewelry or makeup or whatever. And that's not really what I'm reacting to. I understand kids, and in fact, I understand people wearing different things and doing different things. I get that. We all want to be part of, for lack of a better term, a tribe. And to a certain extent, the wet shaving community is a tribe. And, we enjoy being part of this tribe. And so as a young person, especially, part of the growing up is looking around and trying to figure out which tribe you belong to, and then trying to figure out how you can stand out or at least be recognizable and or unique within, well, that tribe. But the thing that I'm reacting to and that, I don't know, disturbs me a little bit is, this stuff gets posted on Facebook. The one recently was this girl was supposed to give a speech at a school graduation or something, and they didn't let her do it because of the dress that she was wearing. It didn't have anything over her shoulders, and that was against the rules. And okay, fine, I understand that. But the thing that just, I don't know, sets me off more than anything else is the comments from some of the adults that say, if you follow the rules, you won't have a problem. If you follow the rules, you won't be in trouble. If you follow the rules. And that's ultimately what I have an issue with. Because, okay, first off, who sets the rules? And just out of curiosity, have you ever thought about the fact that the marketing and the big businesses that we coexist with on a daily basis, by and large, set the rules. They set the expectations. And how would you feel, for example, and this may be taking it to an absurd extreme in order to make a point, but how would you feel if there was a rule that said, well, you can't use anything but a cartridge razor? To a certain extent, they have that kind of rule, sort of, for like airline travel and things like that. Try to take a straight razor on your carry-on luggage and see what happens. Try to take a double-edged razor on your carry-on luggage and see what happens. So to a certain extent, they have made those rules. But the thing is that there is a compliance factor that just sets my teeth on edge. It really does. If we complied with everything, if we just sat there and complied, we'd never pick up a double-edged razor. We'd never pick up a single-edged razor. That's old school technology. You can't have that. You're supposed to follow the rules, and the rules have only one thing available, and that's what's at the stores, and that's the cartridge razors. End of story. We would have never bought shaving soaps that require brushes, because that's not what's in the store. What's in the store is the goo in a can, because that's what the companies make, and that's what you have. And, you're supposed to follow the rules. Dang it. Now, to a certain extent, I understand some rules, but if they're not harming anyone, why do people think that compliance is so necessary? To a certain extent, compliance, if you want to take it to the extreme, if compliance was a thing, we wouldn't have a country. Think about that for a minute. If compliance was a thing, the United States would not exist. If our founding fathers sat there and as the taxes started raising and the Stamp Act was passed and the English appointed governors started basically putting the boot of the King of England on the colonies' throats, if compliance was the order of the day, I'm sorry, we would be, like Canada or Australia. Well, we would. We would not be an independent country. We would be a commonwealth. It's just compliance, and the thing that gets me is more and more and more. Have you noticed how they pound in the news media, in the newspapers, on the internet, compliance? Well, if you don't have anything, if you haven't done anything wrong, you shouldn't have any problem with telling the cops that, they can search your car. Again, compliance. If you're asked to do something, you should comply. You should do it immediately. Compliance. I'm sorry, I'm a human being. I am not a robot. If you want compliance, build a robot. A robot will comply. A human being, well, I don't know, to a certain extent, shouldn't. Otherwise, are we really human? The other thing that just exasperates me is compliance takes no thought. Because somebody else has already decided for you. Somebody else has already made the decision, this is how it should be. Non-compliance, you have to think. You have to, if you make the decision to not necessarily comply with everything, you have to think a little bit. And thinking, I'm sorry anymore, to some people is, well, obviously difficult. Hard even. It's scary. And it's gotten to the point where there's almost this knee-jerk reaction to tell people, comply, comply, comply. Even if those words are not expressly used, the meaning and the thought behind it is the same. And it is, in fact, comply. Wow. Is it any wonder that we don't trust politicians when they ask us to comply? Is there any reason that there is a growing distrust of the government when all they want is compliance? Do what the police tell you, pay your taxes, sit home, watch TV, and be a good, battery. It's the Matrix. It truly is the Matrix. Within the Matrix, if you don't comply, you get ejected. You get voted off the island. To a certain extent, that's... Yeah, if you look at Survivor, even something like that, it's, to a certain extent, compliance. You must fit the norm. You must fit what other people think is acceptable. Otherwise, off the island you go. You can't be, really good at anything because, then you're a threat. Off the island you go. You can't be terribly, terribly different because, if you are, off the island you go. And there's only certain instances that you can save yourself from ejection. Again, it goes down to the heart of everything, which is compliance. It's really amazing. What are we teaching our kids? When we put them in schools and we say, there's only one way to do this problem. There is only one way to get to the correct answer. I'm sorry, that's compliance. Sometimes there is, in fact, more than one way to skin a cat. There just is. I mean, for example, a perfect example. Let's talk about straight razors. Now, in an English or American straight razor, you end up using both hands, and you can because of the grind on the blade. Use a Japanese straight razor and see what happens when you try that. From what I understand, you can't. You have to use it on one side, and one side only, because that's the way it's designed. But it does an exceptional job. There's more than one way to do things. Now, if you look at those two situations, who wins the compliance game? And so the reaction, well, you should comply. If you don't break the rules, you won't have a problem. I'm sorry, I got an issue with that. I really do. Because quite honestly, if I was to have accepted that premise way back when, I'd have never started wet shaving. I'd have never started the podcast. I would have just sit there, drinking beer after work in front of the television, with my health slowly degrading until the point where I'm dead, watching, my show. It's it would have been just, I don't know, compliant, but awful dang boring. I'm sorry. I like I said, I understand the kids doing what they do. I get a little miffed at the reaction of some of the adults. And I wonder, quite honestly, where are the communities of these kids standing up to the school administrators and standing up to these people who are basically pounding on the table saying, you will comply, damn it, and saying, excuse me, I don't think so. I don't think this is important enough to demand compliance. It's not hurting anybody, so what's the big deal? Especially in the public arena. If it's a private school, okay, they have a little bit more leeway because people agree to it. But even then, I'm sorry, there are some things that you look at and you go, really? You're kidding me, right? In fact, there are some groups on Facebook that make jokes about it. And it makes you wonder, why isn't anybody standing up? It's because it's been pounded into our head to be compliant. You know, you often ask, how did we get here? It's because we've been pounded into compliance. To the point where we're even echoing the same thoughts. Be compliant. Damn it. It's an amazing scenario. It really is. And it's a never-ending drumbeat. Very similar to marketing. And it's apparently working, which is even scarier. Because as the marketing pounds it into your head that, you know, the only way to shave is to use a cartridge razor and a can of goo, and it's the best a man can get, and voila, it's the latest and greatest and the newest technology, and there is no better. And there are a lot of people out there who buy that, who haven't even considered doing anything else because, well, they're too busy being compliant.
Well, that concludes this episode of the Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you have some suggestions or would like a topic covered, drop me an email at brushandsoapandblade@gmail.com or give me a call at 864-372-6234 or contact us on Twitter at BrushnBlade. You can also visit us at our blog, brushandsoapandblade.wordpress.com. As always, we're available on iTunes and Stitcher.